Hello, my lovely. We know as women with adult diagnosed ADHD that we did not get to where we are right now by doing things the way everyone else did, right? We know we've often felt like the weirdo in the room. I know I did for a really, really long ass time. We're natural born storytellers and industry disruptors, and we love to shake shit up. We don't like being told what to do, but also Loki help us by telling us what to do in a way that speaks to our brains because we are wired to see the world in a different way. I know that my diagnosis, which was at 49 years old and happened while running this business, changed every area of my life. And I don't say that anecdotally, I mean that literally. It also changed my business for the better because I got curious and I started working in the way that my brain worked. I started to simplify to scale my business and I created recurring monthly revenue so I never have to start another month at zero again. And that is what I teach my clients how to do. It's my signature method called the spicy minded way. And all that means is that my ADHD brain and 25 years of business experience talks to your ADHD brain. And that is how we figure out what works for you. On today's episode, I have a discussion for you. I'm going to be talking with one of my friends, Molly, and we are going to be talking about radical authenticity and a bunch of other pieces and parts that go along with that. So sit back, relax, turn the volume up to an 11, and let's get rolling. Welcome back to the ADHD Entrepreneur, the podcast for feral ADHD elder millennial women who refuse to play by the rules. My name is Carrie. I'm your host. I'm your ADHD business alchemist and the chief weirdo of Carrie Out Loud. If you are new here, welcome. I am so glad you found the podcast. If this episode has an impact on you, could you do me a quick favor and subscribe, turn on the notifications so that you can come back every Wednesday and leave a 5-star review because that really helps this podcast find other. And since I understand your ADHD, both personally and professionally, each episode usually has a few topics all wrapped together, kind of in a way that speaks to your feral funhouse of a brain, random trains of thought. But today I have a guest and we are going to be having a conversation. So I want to introduce Molly Hanson. She is a friend of mine who I met through Instagram and instantly became obsessed with her content. Something just jumped out and spoke to me. I think she found me and I was like, hallelujah, I love this chick. So we definitely vibe. So I'm going to let Molly introduce herself, tell you what she does, and then we're going to just jump right into the discussion. So the floor is yours, Molly.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this. A little bit about myself, to be selfish for a moment. I am an energy first brand and web designer. So I really help brands identify their energy through what I call the 6 key concepts of energy, which is understanding different elements of yourself, your characteristics, values, all those different things, and actually being able to leverage them to impact dream client sales.
Mm.
And my whole shtick is radical authenticity, which you kind of introduced already. We're going to be talking about that today.
Yes,
But
yes,
I am a brand and web designer and now a brand coach too, which
yes.
is super exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm so glad that when you said you changed your Instagram to reflect that, I was like, oh, fuck yes. By the way, you can swear relentlessly on here, so let it
Oh, fuck
fly.
yes. Okay. Thank
We,
God.
you know me well enough to know there's going to be some swears on here. So
Oh,
yeah, feel
yes,
free to let it fly.
absolutely.
But all right. So one of the things that we've talked about that you have throughout your content is radical authenticity and how to embrace it. How did you get there? About radical authenticity and how to embrace it. Like, give me a little bit of your backstory.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I think this is something that a lot of ADHD women can really identify with. And I haven't officially been diagnosed, but I noticed so many changes in myself as an adult. And then a lot of things make sense now that I kind of like have this awareness in my childhood. And
Yes.
ultimately,
Yes.
it was really this fact that I've been considered too much my entire
Mm,
life. Like I'm too emotional, I'm too loud, I'm too blunt. Like I'm extremely blunt. I have the mouth of a sailor, and for a
yes.
lot of people that's just too much. I even got dumped because I was considered too driven, and that was intimidating.
Are you oh, well,
Yeah,
you know what? That's a him thing, not a you thing, because
I know. I was like,
you know
boy,
my
bye.
saying that I've heard from others, and I just have adopted it because it's so great is, "If I'm too much, go find less. Off you go then.
Yes,
Bye-bye. I'm not for you. That's
yes,
fine."
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
so this whole basically lifelong struggle of being considered too much, and especially like getting dumped for being too much, that hit me really hard
Wow.
in that one time of my life. Like I was in college, I was like at this point in my life, my parents had just gotten divorced, so I was like
Mm,
struggling to around this idea of love and a
mhm.
life partner, and then like having this person that I was so interested in and very invested in dump me because I was too much. That like really took a hold on my like younger self, and
Yeah.
it really bled into this reaction of like me stifling myself, suppressing myself. Like I stopped being super outgoing. I stopped like being physically affectionate. I wouldn't give hugs. Like I pushed a lot of people away. I took
Mhm.
on this very like mean, like get the fuck away from me attitude for a long time. I became
Yeah.
very bitter, and
Brutal.
that bled into my first business too. And so my first business, I tried to become a VA and I failed miserably. And
Mm.
I had tried building this aesthetic, this voice, everything around what I thought people wanted. Like when I attempted that, it was in the beige era. And you've seen my
Yes,
content,
girl.
you've seen my website. I am not a beige girly. And
Mm-mm.
I tried to be that. I tried to
Yeah.
be like the clean girl aesthetic, the like creams and whites and stuff, and
Mhm.
everything was hard, and I ended up like failing, never got a single client, never got a serious inquiry,
Mm.
nothing. And so I literally cried on my living room
Mm.
floor the day I decided to give up.
What
And
how long did you give it? First of all, I wanna stop you real quick.
oh yeah.
This story is the story I hear on repeat.
Yes.
Something happens over time and we get smaller and smaller and smaller. It's called masking. We put on all of these masks. We adopt other people's personalities because we think that's what we're supposed to do in order to fit in. The only way to fit in is not be yourself. And as I jokingly have said, people will be like, "Oh, I love your personality." And my brain is like, "Thanks, it's yours." You know, it's like we mimic other people, or you're like you said, get bitter, get angry. I definitely can relate to that piece. So I just wanted you to know, undiagnosed or not, that is a very common thing with ADHD women. And we have to learn how to come out of that. And so sometimes those failures help us to see, fuck this ain't it. I'm going to do something different. And it sounds like, because one of the things that when women have ADHD come onto their radar, or they get a diagnosis, they say the same 6 words. Now my life suddenly makes sense. Something to that effect. Now my
Yeah.
life makes sense. There's even 2 books that have been recently written that are essentially the same title, that. Now my whole life makes sense. There's the 6 words. So this business failed. How long did you try it for? And what made you finally say, "Nope, I'm gonna give up"?
I think I gave it like 9 months because I started it when I was on furlough
Mhm,
from my job during COVID. And
mhm.
then I had pursued it up until I was like now living in Milwaukee and was trying, I was just started at my new job, which I hated shortly after starting. But I'm a spiritual girl. I call myself spiritual instead of religious because I consider myself like a taboo Christian because
Right.
I love the crystals, but like I also love Jesus. Love it. It's a
You're
good
like,
blend
"Crystal
for me.
Light." Crystal Light.
Yes.
No shade to actually the drink Crystal Light, but yeah, Crystal's Light. I get it. I get it.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So I had just been feeling so much resistance,
Mhm.
and I like had my little ceremony with all my little crystals, and I had my
Right.
like oracle deck or whatever, and I like did a reading with that, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with my business right now? Because this isn't working. And the message I got that I felt in my heart too was that I needed to stop and that
Mm,
it wasn't the right time. And I was
yeah.
like, oh, it stabbed me in the heart. I felt awful. I was just like miserable. And I was like, okay, whatever. I guess I'm going to be stuck in a 9 to 5 forever. This sucks.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
then I met my now boyfriend, wonderful human being. Could talk about him all day. But I met him and he does work in corporate, but he works virtually.
Yes.
And I saw how free he was working
Mm,
virtually. Like he had so much freedom in his life. He was really happy. He had just poured into his passions and himself and just all
wow.
these different things. And
Hmm.
I was jealous. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life because I don't want to work a 9 to 5 anymore. I don't want to be stuck in this for the rest of my life. And I started doing some like soul searching, did
Yep.
some like coaching, like workbooks and
Hmm.
stuff. And I stumbled across web design and I was like, okay, I resonate with this person's story. I'm going to move into this. I took a leap of faith. I literally like found 2 classes I wanted to take. I prayed about it that night. I was like, God, if this is the direction I'm supposed to go, please make these classes financially accessible to me because I was poor.
Right.
And literally the next day, the 2 classes I wanted were on sale and bundled together. And I was like, that you cannot
Whoa.
tell me that's not a sign. So I went for it. I've been building ever since. And then I was again experiencing this kind of resistance
Hmm.
and I like was on my way to work throwing a fit in my morning prayer being like, "Okay, God, like why is this not working? I'm not getting
Right.
any clients." And I had just like felt it in my body that I was supposed to quit my job, but I couldn't justify it because I didn't have
Yeah.
any clients yet.
Sure.
And then I got laid off that day. I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh, we have
"Oh
similar
no."
stories. We have similar stories. I literally have been laid off almost every single job I've ever had as the universe's way of like bitch slapping me like, "Hey, hey, hey." And in 2019, I finally was like, "Fine, fine. Okay. I will not go back to these shit show jobs that I hate and that are sucking the soul out of my ear holes. I'm not doing that." And I had broken both of my feet. If you've been listening, you
Oh
may
my
know
gosh.
this story. But yeah, I had broken both of my feet. And that's when I found the online arena. And I've been in business, on and off for myself as an entrepreneur for 25, now it's 25 years. But at that point, it was 20 years. And when I started looking around Instagram, I'm like, wait a minute. This is like international, first of all.
Yeah.
It's available, hundreds of millions of people are available here. I want like this is a place that I could build a business. And so when I finally got that final layoff, I was like, all right, universe, I hear like, we all have our
Yes.
different like power that we think about. But
Mhm.
I was like, all right, universe, I hear you. And I just started going and moving and leaning in and nothing would work, nothing would work, nothing would work. And then I got my ADHD diagnosis. I knew immediately when I got my diagnosis that I was going to pivot to work with just ADHD women, which became more like adult diagnosed or adult, women who've realized it in their adulthood, that
Mhm.
as my specialty. And I just started honing in more and more and more and figuring out what clients loved working with me and the ones I loved working with back. And as I got more of that clarity, it's just my business has started really gaining a different type of momentum. So that being laid off, that kind of like, all right, honey, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it for you. Push you
Yes.
right off the cliff. It's like, all right,
Yes.
babe, you're going to either fly or you're going to splat. Which are you going to choose? And it sounds
Yes.
like you decided that you wanted to fly. So keep
Yes,
going.
that was the literally getting because I had technically started my business while I was working my 9 to 5. And if you scroll back on my Instagram, you can find my like baby business pictures
I love
where
it.
like I'm wearing
Can't
a
wait.
blazer and I look very like corporate and I thought I was cool because it had color and I was like, last time I started a business, it didn't have color. And
Right.
like you can tell that I'm like fresh out of corporate. But then as soon as I was actually free from corporate and
Mm-hmm.
not crying that my creativity was dying anymore. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went into a creative field in college and it was not what I thought it was going to be in the actual workspace.
Right.
So I literally shed so many tears feeling like my creativity was dying. And then as soon as I was like released from that grip that it had on me,
Yeah.
my creativity started like budding and it like popped off and then I was like I was walking to Women's Entrepreneurship Week here in Milwaukee for the first time, and I was like jamming to Boss by Doja Cat. And
Yes.
I was like, if anybody looked at this playlist and saw my brand, like there would be a big disconnect. And that was like my
Yes.
moment of I need to be
Wow.
authentic to myself. I told myself
Yes.
when I went into this business I was going to be authentic, but that was the moment that radical authenticity hit me. And it was literally that
Mhm.
day I was like, I'm rebranding, I'm getting new brand photos, just redoing everything, redoing all of my messaging, because it was in Women's Entrepreneurship Week too that I finally got the prompt that
Yes.
completely shifted my business.
What
And
was it? Do you remember?
it was serve the pain that you know best.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so
I
that is an integral
yeah.
piece that I bring into all of the work with my clients.
Wow. Yeah, it's, the quote that I've seen is, "Women, we turn our pain into our purpose." And
Mm,
we that's, and lean into leadership in that way. When we do that, and you start showing up in that, people, can't help but be attracted to you. Like, first of all, one of the things I know since I work with women with ADHD all day, every day, is that we can sniff the bullshit like fast. Our gut intuition is on hard. If somebody saw me on my Instagram and somebody saw me walking down the street, they're getting the same exact human being. There's no changes,
mhm.
there's no shifts, there's no differences. However, a year ago, maybe even a little bit more recent than that, but I would say over the last 6 to 8 months, I just finally started letting it fly. I'm like, look, I could say the sky is blue and people are going to be, no, it's not, it's green. Okay, you're going to be shitty anyway, or whatever, the fear of judgment and the fear of being seen and things that I was contending with. All of a sudden I was like, and why? Like, if somebody is going to point out something that is very clear, that's the example I use, is the sky is blue. No, it's purple. There's going to be somebody who always sees something different than you. But it's the 100 people who find you and go, fuck yes, versus the one person who says fuck no. Your messaging is right, you're talking to the right person, and you know that when you show up inside of one of your programs or they get something from you, it's not two different people. Because if you are one person on
Yes.
your Instagram or on your feed or in your stories or whatever, and then they show up into one of your courses or something like that, they're like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Because you're throwing around the F bomb and stuff, and your online presence is like, not that. There's a huge disconnect for the client, and that's not fair to
Yeah.
them. So that radical authenticity, you got that message, and what did you do then? How did that change everything for you when you changed the branding, the messaging, etc.? What happened next?
Literally within 2 weeks, my community shifted. My engagement went up. People were resonating with my story. They were like super excited about everything I was posting, everything I was talking about. They started really and truly seeing me as an authority in my space because I
Yeah.
was so much more free to talk about what I wanted to talk about in the ways that I wanted.
Yes.
And it was a little bit of like a gradual shift for me because I started feeling like a little bit of wobbles with my brand before I had my Doja Cat moment. And that was kind of like what sealed the deal for me was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, yeah, I am outgrowing this. And originally, actually, I was scared to rebrand because I was like, I'm only a year in business and I've only had like a handful of clients at this point. I feel like rebranding is going to like lessen my authority or whatever. And I was like, no, you are an absolute rock star and you have learned so much in your first year of business
Mhm.
that you've grown too fast, like you've outgrown
Right.
it, and that is 100% okay. And I
Right.
think like especially as ADHD women, our brains move so damn fast and we
Yes.
retain like really specific information more than the average person, and I feel like
Yes.
we're able to process things so
Yes.
differently and intake what is valuable and spit out and everything that's not, which is
Yeah. Very
sometimes like
quickly. Very
yeah.
quickly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I think has been an advantage to me, but I think a lot of times people struggle, especially in business, like rebranding or shifting their messaging or something because they're like, oh, well, I just got to this point. I haven't been here very long. Like, is it too
Mhm.
early? And obviously, there's checks and balances to that, but we learn so fast. Like, you
Yes.
just got to move with your pace, and that's okay.
Right. And the other thing is, this is part of your story. So when somebody comes to you with this story, where they're like, my brand just does not feel like me. The way that I look and the way that I'm just showing up, it does not feel like me. It doesn't look like me, but I don't know how to break myself free. Then you're going to get on a call with them, put on the fucking Doja Cat, give her the prompt and be like, here's what rocked my world. It's going to rock your world too. But what I'm saying in effect is you come from a lived experience where you can now coach and mentor your people and say, I've walked a mile in those shoes. I can help you walk a different mile. Come with me. I got you, boo. Right? It's
Yes.
like you get to be able to get onto the road next to her and walk with her on her road so that she can then become authentic and more like of herself. And what that does is that's a ripple effect because of you showing up in that way. And by the way, good job for leaving your shit up because you want people to scroll back down and go, you want to
Yes.
see how it started?
I tell them
Check
all
it.
the time, the stuff from my first business is still down there. Like
Same.
it is trash,
Yeah.
but like you can see,
But
like I wanted people to be able to see my evolution.
yeah, well, and precisely. And when you're in that evolution, you're like, should I show people this? They're not going to take me seriously. They're not going to. Like when I decided to have my bold decision I made this year to say, okay, I'm taking this business to $1 million this year. I was like, are people going to take me seriously? When I'm like, listen, bitch, I have had 2 6-figure businesses and I have been in entrepreneurship for 25 years. Yes, people are going to take me seriously. And those who have that similar aspiration are going to be like, oh shit, if she can do it, I can do it. And I can teach them how to simplify so they can scale because I've been through that. I have been way overburdened with certain things and go, okay, what do I need to do? We're not bare bonesing my business, but where do I automate? Where do I delegate? And where do I lean in? And who am I truly talking to and why? Why her? Why now? Why me? Why this business? This business, which by the way, I got diagnosed in the middle of running, right? So we get to take those moments, those processes that eventually become possibly a program going, bitch, I've been there. I have my
Yes.
program, Unfuck Your Money, honey. It's like, because I know ADHD women sometimes don't want people to see the back end of their business. They're embarrassed or ashamed or whatever. So I'm like, okay, what do
Me.
I create? Yeah, it's like, what do I create for the woman who's like embarrassed to show her back end to somebody, to show her, I've been there. I understand where you're coming from. And this program in itself can absolutely help you. 100%. You never have to talk to me again. You can take that program. But at the end, they're like, oh, she gets it. Like, she's like me. She's not going to judge me because, duh, no, of course I'm not. I was you. Why? That'd be judging my old self. That's shitty. Why would I do that? I love her. She got me here. Right.
Yes.
So, embracing that radical authenticity, talk about how your community shifted and what occurred, what happened from that point forward.
Yes. So I'm gonna pause on that for a second because you brought up something earlier that I really want to touch on, about feeling like people weren't gonna view you as a professional for like having this big ass goal. And I feel like, especially when it comes to stepping into radical authenticity, people are so scared of like, oh, if I swear, people aren't going to view me as a professional. If I wear super bright colors or like a super lacy top in my brand shoot, like nobody's going to take me seriously. I'm not a quote unquote professional. And what I tell people when it comes to that, because that is one of the biggest pieces of resistance I get with my
Yes.
clients, is that you are not a professional because of the way you look or you sound. You are a professional because of your expertise and what's in your brain.
Yes, ma'am.
Lead with that as your expertise and
Yes.
your professionalism, and
Yes.
let your authenticity be the guiding like connection point to
Right.
your dream clients, because there's a difference between ideal clients and dream clients. At least in my world there is.
Okay. Explain the
I
difference in your world. I want to hear this. What's the
Yes.
difference to
So
you?
I view ideal clients as people that you are capable of serving and serving very well through your service.
Hmm.
However, a dream client is an ideal client that like absolutely lights you the fuck up. That feels like a bestie
Yes.
whenever you're hopping on a call,
Woo!
like you're able to
Yes.
laugh with them, you're able to bond with them, and it's just so much more fun working with those people. An ideal
Yes.
client, they may fit like XYZ qualifications to work with you.
Sure.
They might be able to afford you, they might have like this pain that you serve, they might like I don't know. They just might have all of these different qualifications, these checkpoints that you put in for your like ideal client persona,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's the dream clients that actually light you up. And you can't connect with dream clients regularly if you don't embrace radical authenticity.
Yes, and I call them fuck yes clients. That's what I call them. Some people call it ICA or ideal clients, but I wanted a bolder term, and I like your bold
Yes.
term as well. It's like yes, there are people you can do business with, but now that I have worked with dream fuck yes clients and that bar is there,
Yeah.
I won't go backward. I won't.
Yeah.
And one of the
I
things,
talk about that all the time. Like literally everybody who comes to work with me is a dream client. I do not
yes,
have non-aligned clients. I don't have people who are bartering my services. Like everybody
exactly.
who comes to me is like so excited to work with me and so excited to pay me, and they recognize my prices. I've even had a couple people be like, "Oh, okay." Like when I dropped this big ass price on them and they're like, "Oh, okay, I thought it was going to be more."
Yeah,
I'm like,
for sure.
"Sick."
Well, that's because they understand the value of what you do. And one of the things that I am going to be leaning into talking about more is that women oftentimes when they're pricing their offers or pricing their services, they're pricing what they think is their worth or value. And when we do that, we are going to underprice it because we underprice and undervalue ourselves as women with ADHD in general because of our life and our history. And what I teach my clients is you are not pricing yourself. You are pricing the outcome of the transformation of your fuck yes client. If your fuck yes client makes 100,000 to 500,000 a year, I think mine is what between 150 and 500,000 is kind of like that arena, and that will elevate eventually. But that's where I'm at right now, right?
Mhm.
And even though it doesn't always hit that is like the goal, right? But if I transform her business over 5 years by increasing her revenue 100K, I've earned her 500K more in her business. That
Mhm.
is not a $500 investment. Sorry, Charlie. No. That is a $5,000 a month investment for 3 to 6 months, or that is some sort of membership investment that's at a higher price point where she can get the support she needs in the moment if she doesn't need such deep hands on, right?
Mhm.
But I think that we're so busy thinking, what is my value? What am I worth? And since we've undervalued our worth and we didn't have self esteem for a really long time, because one of the things about finding out you have ADHD is you fucking find your self esteem. It's one of the best side effects. You're like, I
Yeah.
love me because this is how I am. And we are literally designed to be entrepreneurs. And you're like me, you're designed to create something, fail fast, learn the lesson, and then immediately turn around and share the fucking lesson. That is
Mhm.
how we teach people the best, right? And so the fact that you understand that you're pricing the outcome and that those people are like, yeah, because they know what your outcome looks like because they've seen the samples or other websites or whatever. I mean, the stuff you create, girl, I mean, we're going to put your shit in the show notes. I love your stuff, right? It just screams radical authenticity. But you also understand the value of the thing you're creating. The return on investment for those women is going to be year after year after year of increased revenue and people finding her because of the SEO that you hide in there and in the photos or whatever it is that you
Mhm.
do that I've kind of seen in your stories and whatnot. But you have figured out the pricing and your ideal client. And so of course they go, "Oh, is that it?" Because if someone's making $1 million a year or, they have a $3 million business so far, that is like a penny to someone who has $5. It is so subjective. And some
Yeah.
people have their own money story and their own money shit. And so they don't price things appropriately because they just don't understand that it's about the transformation. And I love that after you had that failed business, you understood that transformation that you provide and what your fuck yes clients, your unicorn clients come out with. And they see it too. And they're like, oh, is that it? So, yeah, of course you're hearing that. But if you have somebody who's making $20,000 in their business per year and you give them like a 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, whatever I'm not talking about your price tag, I'm just talking about price tag in general, they're going to be like choking.
Yeah.
So, it really just does boil down to who you're speaking to, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think for me, one of the biggest issues that I've come into with pricing myself, I literally just went through this with pricing my new course and my brand
Yes.
coaching like add on to that, was that I was like, oh, I'm gonna do like X number of dollars for 3 months or whatever. And I sent it to my coach and I was like, does this sound good to you? And she's like, absolutely not. This
Not.
should be like, if they're getting 3 months with you, this should be thousands of dollars. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay. And
Right.
it's less about my perspective on myself, and it's more like, oh, this comes so naturally to me that I'm like, oh, this isn't like, it's so natural that it's not that big of a deal or whatever. And then I have to remind myself that it's natural to me because I've been
Yes.
gifted that way.
Yes.
It is not natural to everyone else, and my
No.
gift should cost money because it's
Yes.
so impactful.
Yes.
But just because it's natural to me doesn't mean that it's not worth something.
Right. And when people up level their business and they up level it in a way where they are up leveling their website
Hmm.
and doing something more fearless, fierce, ferocious, like so much of the branding that I've seen you do. And then you also do have those more softer or gentle, like you've done so many different things. I'm like, but I know our ADHD brains. And I know if something is a hyper focus, we can do so much within that thing that is our hyper focus, create differently in such different ways. Like I've talked to you about my branding. My branding is beautiful. It's pretty. It's got all these colors. And then the words are fucking feral. You know why? Because I am a duality person. I'm bougie as fuck. I like to go to concerts. I like to do certain things. But on the flip side, I swear, like you, like a fucking sailor. And so I'm giving them an impression immediately of who I am. Ooh, this is really nice. This is really pretty. It's not a bunch of beigey colors. It's a rose gold and a burgundy and, black and white. So something's really classic looking or,
Hmm.
attractive and in an elevated way. But then they read the words and they're like, whoa, oh, what?
You get
And
to be
it's,
both.
yes, exactly. And it took me a while, like you were saying with your branding. I changed my branding on repeatedly. And then I finally committed to this particular branding for a year because I hit it on the head. And so I don't worry about it anymore because I've put elements of myself in it. Like
Hmm.
in the background of certain things, there'll be a mirror ball, there'll be my dog, there'll be records because I love music. Like I finally started putting little images that were key elements of me, or if I'm sharing something in a story, something in the background is maybe something about me. Like I'll show an image of me doing pottery and I'll put some wording on it and have that like little bit of a darkness so that it can be read. But they're getting an impression of who I am
Yes, they're
by
connecting
using
with
that.
you beyond the
Yes.
service you provide, which is what I
Yes.
preach all the time. If
Yes.
you want to bond with dream clients rather than just selling just like one element of your service over and over
Yeah.
and over again, you have to infuse yourself.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be like blatant verbiage. I love pottery.
No.
It can just be subtle elements like that. And that's something that I could literally talk about at length.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll take a picture at a concert or because, concerts, going to the gym, like there's definitely certain things that I just talk about on a regular basis. And what I thought to myself was, what are the things that I sit and talk about the most? I talk about live music, talk about my little, my little pipsqueak dog. I talk about mirror balls because I've seen them every day in some way, shape, or form for years. There are these couple of things. And I'm like, why am I not infusing this shit into my brand? So when I found the carousel that I have, and half of it is solid, and the other half I have like an image behind it. Those images are me, right? But not my face. One of them is my face. One of them is my dog. Like I said, one of them is records. One of them is a mirror ball. Those are all elements of who I am. So they're already starting. They're like, what's in the background? Is that a record? Like, are those records? Like, what is that? Well, that now they're like, oh, well, why is that? Is that music? Oh, is she into music? Like what, and
Yes.
it makes them curious about those elements of you. And then you bond over those things. Like when I go to live concerts, I share that stuff in my story after I've left, of course, because we don't want to tag where
We're
we are
women. Gotta be
in the
safe. Gotta be
moment.
safe.
Yes. But I will put a couple of videos up about that because I, for so long, did not put that together. I was so busy trying to mimic other people and how they had had success that I was like, okay, I have to mimic them in a way that's actually, though, me. What elements of me do I bring in? That changed a lot. And that's why my branding now feels so me. And then when you see it, you're like, oh, this is really pretty. Oh, shit. Did she just say that? you know, and that makes it fun for me. Like for me, that's
Yes.
so fun.
Yeah, and I love that you bring this up about like looking at other people's stuff, trying to figure out what they did to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And That is something that I see a lot of
Yeah.
my clients do, or even like I did in my first
Yes.
business. I
Sure.
was just like, okay, what is she doing? What is she doing? What is she doing? What are they talking about? How are they talking? Like, how are they showing up? What do their graphics look like?
Yep.
And then I just tried to emulate, and it failed. And
Yes.
that's like such a big part of like what I do in business
Yeah.
is really helping people identify what is you.
Yeah,
Like,
do you help them extract those elements? Like when they do an intake form
mhm.
for like when you're actually creating the website, do you have questions for them like, "Hey, like what are the things you love? What do you like to drink? Where do you like to go?
I
What do you like to do?" Do
yes.
you have any of those? Because I do that a little bit with my clients. If it's something that they need to kind of help them understand because one of the other things I did, why things changed so much, I put my fucking blinders on.
Mm,
I have a business mentor. Her aesthetic is hot and sexy, and I wish that was me, but it's not. And the people who like me as me, that's why they're here, right? And as much as I
mhm,
love her aesthetic and I'm attracted to it, right? I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I just blinders on. I stopped looking at anybody else who was a business coach. I literally stopped listening to podcasts, reading books. I stopped all that. And I sat with myself and I said, what is me? Because
mhm.
at this age, I still didn't know what that was. And I needed to quiet the noise, find those elements that were me, take the fucking training wheels off. Because first it's like, I'm learning the rules. And you're like, I now know the rules. And then you're like, yeah, fuck the rules. Those are kind of like the three parts of business, right?
Yes.
And so I finally got to that fuck the rules part because I knew everything that I needed to know to continue forward. And just stopped watching other people's shit because I would be like, oh, maybe I should talk about that or this or that. And when I finally did that and started showing up in my stories that way and started showing up in my content by really putting those blinders on, my brand really emerged. And so, is that a process you take your clients through? Tell me a little bit more about
Yes.
that. You don't have to go into detail. Obviously, it's your signature method,
Oh,
but
this is good.
yeah.
So, yes, I have like a big ass questionnaire that my clients fill out, whether they're doing branding with me or websites or like mentorship or whatever. They
Right.
fill out this questionnaire, and some of the questions are like very strictly related to the website. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, what sections do you want? Like, what offers do you have? What's the
Yes.
transformation? Whatever. But I have this framework called the six key concepts of energy, and um, that's your uh, how you want your community to feel, the impact you aim to leave on the world, um, your spicy industry opinions, your
Yes.
non-basic bitch brand values, how you
Woo!
show up in radical authenticity, and the pain you serve and how you uniquely serve it. And so that's
Non-branding. No, no. What did
oh
you
my
say?
gosh, I could talk at length about basic bitch brand
Non-basic
values.
visioning. Okay, that's so good. That's so
But
good.
yeah, I have a ton of questions in that questionnaire that really revolve around those six key concepts
That's
to really
incredible.
extract information from them. And one of
Hmm.
the questions I always ask them is like, what are you hiding from your audience? What are you so nervous to share and why? And
What
so
are
we
you
do a
not
little bit of like
saying?
shadow work in there. And
What are you
I've
not
had
fucking
several
saying?
clients. Yeah, I've had several clients tell me that it feels like business therapy
Yeah,
because they have
same.
to
My
dig
clients say
deep.
that. Yeah, my clients say the same thing too because I just kind of help pull and extract things from them they're not expecting to be asked necessarily.
Yeah, and that's and kind of what you were saying earlier too about like your once you put the blinders on, your brand completely transformed.
Yeah.
That is very similar to what happened to me, where I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not paying attention to anybody else. This is my message. And I do things in my marketing that are non-traditional for like my industry. Like I actually don't talk about websites all that much. I talk about dream clients,
Yeah.
and I talk about how your website can facilitate that
Yep.
through my method.
Right.
And my method being the six key concepts and what I call the BBA, which is beauty, brains, and authenticity.
Yeah.
So your website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing, professional branding, all the good stuff. Brains, which is the strategy, because there are so many websites that are beautiful, but they lack strategy. And then it's
Yes.
like, it's not
Agreed.
doing shit for you if
Right.
it doesn't have a strategy. And
Right.
then I always like to include authenticity because I
Yeah.
have also seen over and over and over again, people feel like their website needs to be this super professional version of them and they're not allowed to swear, or they have to say, this is what this program includes and it's this price and blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And it's like, bitch, let's spice it up a bit.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
awesome and you're spicy and you're cool. Like, people need
Yes.
to get that through your website just the
Yes.
same as they need to get it through your socials. Like,
Yeah.
you should be the same person in every aspect of your business.
Preach. Say it again one more time for the people in the back.
Yes, and this is something I have so many frameworks, it's ridiculous. I have like four lenses that I try to look at authenticity through for people's businesses. And that's content, communication, assets, and your work. And
Hmm.
so content and communication are kind of the same. Like, does it come out? Are you being 110% yourself
Yeah.
in your content, in your captions, in your videos? Are, when it comes to communication, are you sending emails that sound super professional, or are you just talking in a very conversational way? I
Yeah.
love gifs and
Yes.
memes.
Same.
I
Same.
include a welcome meme slash GIF for every single one of my clients. I
Yes.
include them in my emails. Like,
Yep.
that is normal for me. That is actually a
Yeah.
brand recognition point.
Yeah. Same.
And then your
That's funny.
assets, that's like proposals, your website, things like that. Like,
Hmm.
are you coming through in that? And then in your work, this is really where I see some people lacking. And it's like, okay, when it comes to your unique approach or your
Yeah.
beliefs, like, how is that actually coming through in your work?
Right.
And again, this is kind of tying back to the non-basic bitch brand values. Do those values actually show up in your business? Because there are
Yeah.
so many people who are like, oh, I value blah, blah, blah. And then they don't do anything or say anything to back it up. And
Yes.
I say this all the time, we prove shit here. We don't just say it. And so
Boom.
anytime it comes to your values, I make sure my clients prove that through and through. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how does that show up in your business? And
Yes.
how does that value benefit your clients?
Yeah. Oh, that's so freaking good. Yeah. And this, I mean, when I was looking at your content and everything initially, and then I went into your highlights, I'm going to be putting her information, go into her highlights and see her little highlight that says my work. I think it's my work, right, Molly?
Yeah.
It says my work.
Some of the early
Ah,
stuff in there, it's like
oh,
baby me, but the
it's
newer
so
stuff is
good.
fire.
It's still good. Even your baby stuff, I'm like, well, shit. It's like one of those things where you look at it and you're like, well, if this is her baby stuff,
I know,
let me
I've
see
like
her shit
contemplated taking
now.
it down, but I'm like, this is
Nope.
proof of my skills. We're good.
Nope. Don't take it down because it's proof of your evolution. And
Mm,
people want to know you're a real fucking human, that you have evolved over time and grown, that you are refining things as you go along and continually making the outcome better for the client, because that's really what we do. And when you do that, that ripple effect is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, I have an appointment on Wednesday with a woman who listened to my podcast, and she's talking to somebody else as well. But she literally said in her email, I thought we were probably a fit when you were saying fuck throughout your podcast. And I'm
yes.
like, yes, because that's who I am. And so we were laughing about that. And I said, well, my dog, she owns this really cool like dog daycare and spa, but it's like luxe,
Oh.
right? It's so beautiful. I was like, I saw her website. I was like salivating. I'm like, this is so beautiful, the website. And I said, well, my dog will be with me here. And she goes, mine too, farting. And I lost my marbles. I was like, yep. Like they come highly scented at times. My dog was right in the front of the fan sometimes. And
Oh
I'm just like,
no.
so we
Mine's
just,
right next to me. She's sleeping.
yeah. And I put that straight up in my email. I'm not going to not be me. Right. And so I I want people to have options. If I'm an option for them, great. If I'm not the right option for them, I will tell them right away. I don't want to waste your fucking time.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're the same way. Like if you're
Mhm.
not going to be able to do the things that they want you to do or be able to help them in the way that is in your fucking zone of magic, then, the other thing is that a lot of I think women in business don't realize is you get to say no to the energy too. It's not like,
Yes.
"Oh, are they gonna hire me? I'm the best choice." It's like, "Do I wanna work with them?" That's why I do connection calls all the time, and other people are
Me
like, "Don't do
too.
those calls," and It's like, "Bitch, if I'm working with you for 3 to 6 months, we better jive." Because I
Yeah.
don't want you just hiring me out of nowhere and us not jiving, because that's a waste of their time, their money, and mine. And it
Yes.
just doesn't make any sense. And so I love that you know what that energy is, that you draw those people in. And it is because of that radical authenticity, that just feral energy. That's what I call it. That just feral energy that shoots out from a piece of content that just has Molly all over it. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on here is this conversation I knew would be fucking fire. But I also want other women who are listening, who are kind of in that messy, weird middle place in business, and they're like in kind of survival ship, solopreneur mode right there, to know that they can bring these pieces and parts out of them in a way that's fun and also beautiful and also very them. So they're not having to continue to mask in their business. Is it
Yeah.
terrifying? Yes. Is it worth it? 1,000,000%. It is way better than you will ever imagine when you are not trying to hit record or show up in a way that is not you. You just get to show up. And we don't always know exactly who we are at the moment. It's like, keep
Mm-hmm.
showing up where you're at, because the rest of it is coming. It's like it's an evolution. And so,
100%.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think like as entrepreneurs, that's another thing that's like really scary is that we're constantly growing. So
Mhm.
it feels like you're never done. Or
Right.
like it's like, oh no, like I'm changing again. And it's like, girl, that's okay. Like you're
Yeah, well, I
learning
mean,
so
there
much
were
more than
like,
the average person.
sure, but I mean, there were major brands that started out as something completely different. Like if you I'd have to look for this, but they were like, this company was originally that, and you're like, what? Like they're not even related. The same name,
Kohler.
not even related.
Kohler
What?
is a good example. Kohler, um, pulling on my interior design memory here. Kohler actually started as a tractor
They're a paint
engine
company,
company.
right? Right?
Tractor, yeah, and now they do like all things bath and like
Ah, that's right.
water.
Faucets, sinks.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Oh my
that's what they're known
gosh.
for. If you go, I don't know where, I don't even remember where you are
Yeah.
in the States.
Southern California.
Okay, so you're probably not going to be over here, but if you ever are in like the Sheboygan area in Wisconsin, the Kohler Design Center is there, and they have a museum in the basement that shows their evolution as a brand. And it's like they started with tractors and tractor engines, and then the first bathtub was a horse trough that they put legs on.
And we love them for it because now they're cooler. But see, I
Yeah.
think what people don't realize is that when you're creating a personal brand, it's called a personal brand for a reason. It's personal. That doesn't mean you have to put all your shit out on the internet and put your entire life out there. Like, okay, here's everything that happens in my life. That doesn't
Have
make it a
some healthy
personal brand.
boundaries. We love
Yeah, that
boundaries.
doesn't make it a personal brand. What makes it a personal brand is showing up as yourself, exactly as you are in that moment. I always worried because I don't wear a ton of makeup. My hair isn't down a lot. I wear concert t-shirts and all these things. And I'm just like, am I going to be that whole same thing you said, the professionalism, all that. I had jobs where I was wearing three-piece suits forever, in my past lives. And I thought that's what it took. And frankly, if somebody says, swearing isn't professional, it's like, well, I'm not a fit for you. I
Yeah.
have these two shirts and they both say I'm not for everyone. And that is a fact, Jack. I am not for everyone. You may
Nor
not be able.
should you be.
Correct. And I think once I learned that and I was able to really start narrowing in who my fuck yes clients were even more and more and more, and I've said this probably the last few episodes, the more narrow you get, the wider the net, baby. Right? You're going
Hmm.
to attract so many more people by being super clear who don't necessarily fit right into that fuck yes ideal client necessarily avatar, but the message is there where they know enough. It's also for them. You're not
Yeah.
going to miss people that way. You're going to actually draw in more people that way. And it feels so counterintuitive, but I
Yes.
have seen it in action over the last 6 months
Yeah.
in
And
action.
that's something I have experienced too. And I think a lot of people, at least in my industry, I've gotten so many DMs from other web designers being like, "Oh, like what's your niche? How did you get clients? Like whatever." And it's like, I don't have a niche. My niche is women, service-based women. That's a super broad niche.
Right.
But the actual niche that I have is in my message. Like,
Yes.
I am not for shallow people.
Yeah.
I am not for people who are not passionate about their business. I
Right.
am not for people who don't want to have deep, genuine, beautiful connections with their clients. Like, if you
Right.
want to have a lot of distance emotionally and mentally from your clients, by all means, go ham. But I am not the person for you.
Right. Right.
I develop highly connective brands and
Mm-hmm.
websites for people that land them those super beautiful relationships with their clients.
Right, right. And in a day and age where a lot of like some of the bigger women in business are, courses and maybe launch something, one thing huge per year, I personally prefer depth versus width. I like to go
Mm.
deeper with my clients, not as wide. So my one-on-one clients, I only take 1 to 2 at a time because I am literally elbows deep up in that shit with them, sharing screens, fixing shit on the back end, taking a look at their systems. Like I am elbow deep in it with them. I know my energy. I know my capacity. That's one of the things that not a lot of women with ADHD even think about is what your client capacity is for your different programs. And really leaning into that and knowing that that was my style with my more one-on-one clients, and that is more of a premium package. Period, because you are
Yeah.
literally getting a shit ton of access to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're homies, we're twins, we're joined at the hip for however long we are together in that process. But it really changes their business. Like really changes their business. I've seen it. I have one client, I've worked with her for like 10, 11 months. Oh my gosh, where she is now and where she was. It's like, who is this fucking person? But I realized like I didn't do that for her. She had to do the work, but I facilitated that change by being myself and showing up exactly who I am, which gave her permission to find that piece of herself to set free and to stop worrying about certain people who may be watching her content or watching her stories, and they may see her in a different way than they've seen her before. It's like, yes, but this is you. This is the woman I see every day. You got to let her out. Like fucking let her out of the cage. The key's in your hand and you're standing in the jail going, let me out. It's in your hand. Let your fucking self out. Right. But I know it's simple, but it isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
But you, like myself, are a transformational coach. We transform their lives, their businesses and their lives, and that transforms hundreds, thousands, eventually millions of other women's businesses, because we've touched one business, there's a ripple effect. We've touched another business, ripple effect, right? And those
Yeah.
people needed that person to be all of who they were. And so your people needed you to become all of who you were. And then they found you.
Yes. And this is such a great example. I just had an interview on my podcast with a past client of mine, and she and I did her website and messaging together.
Mm-hmm.
And she had gotten her branding done by somebody else, but again, it was like super vibrant, like very her. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, okay, I need to at least step into this part of me. And then I got it to come out in her messaging, and she just sent me a screenshot the other day. Every goal that we wrote down from her intensive a year ago has been hit, and she is now transitioning into her 5-year goal
Woo!
now, a year later. And I'm like, this is the power of this work. This is
Yes.
like, it has so much impact. And now she is working with people that she's absolutely obsessed with.
Yeah.
And then those people are getting support from somebody that they're
Yes.
absolutely obsessed with. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just building all of these different relationships. It
Yes.
100% has this just like massive ripple across the board. And I'm
Right.
like,
And you help
oh, this
them.
is so great.
Right, right. Because we help them bend time. We help them go, okay, look, A is here. You want to be at E. B, C, and D are what you think you need to do in the middle, but actually you need to do D plus, B minus, C, and we help them collapse that time it takes them. And that's what we do. We're a facilitator. We're a bridge from A to D. And for you, you facilitate that with that branding and that deeper message and connection. And the way I do it is I help them bridge the gap between, solopreneurship and like stop being an employer in your business and be more of a fucking CEO, right? So
Mhm.
we have found those bridges that we are here to help walk women across. And when we're really talking about those things light us up. They light us up. Like I could sit here and talk to you for another hour easily. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
We'll
So
just have to make another episode.
I think so too. Eventually down the road, yes.
Yes.
But to wrap it up, if you if somebody out there is listening right now and thinking, you know, should I upgrade my website? You know, what is the purpose of that? Like, will it really actually help or change my business? And in the beginning, it's not going to as much. In the beginning, you are fucking hoofing it. You are like just in rawville, right?
Yeah.
But eventually there gets to be a point where your messaging is on, your branding is there, and it's like, okay, it's time for a fucking upgrade. What would you say to that woman who's sitting on the fence right now going, I don't know? What would you tell her?
Bitch, if your brand evolved, so does your website. It needs
Yeah.
to come with you. Because what I have found is that people in the early stages of business, they either don't have one or they use a template. And that is a
Yeah.
great place to start.
Yes.
However, that does not have the strategy, the customized strategy that you
Right.
need to really drive home all of your messaging.
Agreed.
And then the other part of it that I see is with a lot of women that come to me, they're at a point where they are scaling their business and
Yes.
they want to really, like, the term that they use all the time is like level up or evolve or amplify or
Right.
whatever. They just take it up a notch
Yes.
where they want to really elevate their brand.
Oh,
And that
yes.
is the key
Yes.
language that I hear from them.
Mhm.
And that really comes down to, all right, are you showing up authentically in your
Yeah.
business? If not, let's start there. Do you have your messaging and your people like really deeply figured out? And once
Mhm.
they do, they realize, like, oh shit, this is not up to par. This needs to
Yes.
come with me. Otherwise, it is like trying to do sprints with a weight at your back,
Mhm.
because you need to be able to use it as a marketing tool to propel you further. I'm in the
Yes.
middle of a launch right now, and I am so annoyed that my sales page is not quite done, because it would be so much easier for me to just be able to talk about my offer, plug the sales page, which has
Yes.
all of the information they need, and
Right.
then people aren't waiting for me to drip out
Yes.
information about this offer at whatever pace. Like,
Right.
unless I'm hauling ass, posting a fuck ton number of times a day,
Yeah.
I can't convert nearly as fast as I
Yes.
can with a sales page.
Correct.
The other thing I will also add to this is that if you want to attract empowered buyers, which
Oh, yes.
everyone talks about, you're an empowered person, you move on your own, and then you don't have tools to let them move on their own and make
Yes.
decisions by themselves,
Yes.
they're not going to want to buy from you.
Right.
I have seen quote unquote high level leaders not have a website. And I, as an empowered buyer, I'm like, fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. I want to
Right.
make my own decision. I don't want to have to slide into your DMs
Right.
and have you try to convince me to
Right.
work with you. I want
Right.
to make that decision myself.
Right.
And that is what a website allows you to do.
Right. And also, one of the things is when we speak up to women,
Mm,
when we speak up to them, instead of sitting there and just agitating every pain point, going, oh, yeah, agitated. Empowered women do not come when you just constantly agitate pain points. You do
mhm.
need there to be pain aware. You need to understand the underlying thing that is having them desire your services. You have to know that. But
Mhm.
when you come from a place of imagine this, or think about 6 months down the road and this is how it looks, and you're speaking up to her in a way where she is not feeling like shit about herself, she is then feeling empowered to make that decision. I tell you, it is better to take a carrot versus a stick. If you are beating people over the head with their problems all the time in every piece of content, you are going to attract people who have all the problems all the time, and you're not going to be able to help them solve the problem.
You're going to be in
Var-
victim mode.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I work with ADHD women. There are women who have ADHD who are constantly living in victim mode. They are not my people. They are
Mhm.
literally not my people. And it's not that I don't love them or understand where they're coming from. It's that we're not going to jive, because I see ADHD as an upside. I know that there are things we contend with that are frustrating. I live it day in and day out. I understand them ADHD personally and professionally, but I'm going to speak up to these women because they're going to see I'm here to show them the way, to empower them to make those choices and make those decisions and make those big fucking bold ass moves that they want to make. And when I have those women coming into my world, I was in my stories the other day. I'm like, how am I this lucky? How do these women keep coming? And then I think to myself, I know exactly how, because I speak up to them. I don't speak down to people. And yes, I do talk about the fact I understand, your issue. I'm aware of your issues, but I'm not
Mhm.
going to rub them in your face on repeat because that does not empower anybody. That is not empowering to any woman. And so, I love this conversation so much. I love this conversation because this is a conversation that isn't had a lot. It is
Yeah.
not had very much. I mean, people talk about be authentic. Okay, that is subjective. What's authentic to me, what's authentic to you, somebody swear words are authentic. Somebody not swearing is authentic. Okay? Like
Yeah. And so
that's
often I talk about this relative to like my branding and brand strategy, but the new course that I'm launching too is that when I started building a personal brand, so much of the advice that I got was like, oh, share your pet, share your coffee order. And it's like, that's not deep enough to make a genuine connection with
right.
somebody
Right. What do you
to a
stand
point where
for?
they are going to want to work with you. Like
What do you
those
stand
might
for?
get you a story response or a few likes or whatever, but it doesn't generate connection or conversion.
Yes. And that is at the end of the day, what do you stand for? And do you actually live in
Mhm.
those values, or are your words coming out of your mouth different than the values you say you have? And you mentioned that.
On
And
basic bitch brand values,
yeah, so
baby.
good. So tell the people about your program, tell the people where they can find you. And again, I'll have you give me whatever you want me to connect in the show notes, but tell them about your program, when it starts, like give everybody the down low so that if they want to jump in, if they're like hearing this and they're on fucking fire like I am, I want them to be able to access you. So drop it.
Yes. So there's two primary things that I am focusing on right now. That is website in a week. So if you're in this and you're like, fuck yeah, I do know who I am. I'm ready to up level my business, really bring it with me and elevate myself so that I can connect with my dream humans. My website's got to come with me. I have a website in a week program. So we can literally take everything that you have and we're going to plug it into a website that will actually convert dream clients, not just ideal clients.
Great.
And then the course that I'm launching, I'm literally so excited about this.
I'm
I've
excited
talked
for
to you
you.
at length
I know
about it.
we've talked about it so
This
much. It's
is
just like,
literally like this entire conversation. This
yeah,
is what my course is about is
yeah,
how to lead with energy first in your business and
yeah.
embrace that radical authenticity in a way that actually impacts sales.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the share your coffee order bullshit. It's the actual who, how, why, and how do we incorporate that into multiple facets of our business in order to connect and convert our dream people.
Right.
And that is enrollment is open for it now.
What's it
Early
called?
bird. It's called the Soulmate X Energy course.
Okay, and one more thing. This is February 24th, 2025. So
Yes.
right now she's going to be putting her first, like her live version of this out. What is the cutoff? When is your cart close, baby?
The cart for enrollment closes March 28th. We go
And when does the
live
price go
on
up?
the price goes up in two waves. So the price goes up February 29th, or no, March 1st.
Okay,
It
that's
ends
coming.
February 28th, goes up March 1st. There
Okay.
will be another wave and then it'll go up again.
Okay. Excellent. So I will make sure to link all of her information. So if you're interested in that course or you're interested in her website and day, which is such or a week, which is such a cool thing because it can be done in such a way that it's just bang, bang, boom, and there it is, right?
No
And
waiting. As an ADHD person, we move real fast.
right. And I have Kajabi. I love Kajabi, but the site you don't do it on Kajabi. You do a different site. But then I'm going to be able to link all my links through your website, and it's going to take everybody to my Kajabi on the back end for, checking out and those types of things. So, you
Mhm.
know, I just think that what you offer is such a cool freaking thing. And I can't wait for everybody to hear this.
I know, I'm so excited too. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am Molly Hanson. That's Hanson. And then highvibestudios.com is my website.
Great. I'll pop those into the show notes. And with that, I'm going to end this episode. I see you. I love you. I'm fucking rooting for you always. Stay weird and come back next week. So say bye, Molly.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh, hey, you're still here. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the ways to follow me. And of course, my goal is to find and help as many women with ADHD get away from the 9 to 5 grind, because it's just not designed for our neurospicy brilliance, and there are other ways to do life. So by subscribing, sharing, and giving a 5-star review, it helps other women find this podcast as well. And if there's an episode you really love, please feel free to take a screenshot and share it on your social and tag me in it so that I can thank you personally. Until next time, you spicy brained unicorn. Bye.